Welcome to the Spun Today Podcast, the podcast that is anchored in writing but unlimited in scope. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz, and I appreciate you listening. This is episode 144, and in this episode, I speak about watching UFC 246, the documentary series Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, and I also speak about Dave Chappelle receiving the Mark Twain Prize. If any iota of that sounds interesting to you, stick around to get my take on them. And if not, kick rocks. But first, before you do either of those two, take a listen to a way that you can help support the show that you are listening to right now. You know that feeling that you get on a Monday when you're sad because the weekend is over and you have nothing to look forward to except for lunch? Have no fear, the Midday Monday Boost Letter is here. And you might be thinking, what is the Midday Monday Boost Letter? Sounds like a mouthful. And it is, but it's also more than that. I put together this absolutely free newsletter that I email to all my subscribers every Monday at noon to spread a little joy and happiness. If you choose to subscribe, all you have to do is go to spuntoday.com/subscribe and drop in your email address. And what you'll get is 5 things. You'll get a photo of the week, which who doesn't like looking at dope pictures? You'll also get a podcast of the week. I listen to dozens and dozens of podcasts every single week from a wide variety of shows, and I cherry pick the very best ones and share them with you as my recommendation for that week. Also in the Midday Monday Boost Letter, you will find a video of the week, which could be anything from a cool online recipe that I found, to a rap battle, to a TED Talk, or a dope interview. I also share a quote of the week, a little food for thought, as well as a word of the week for my fellow wordsmiths out there. Again, this is all absolutely free, and you can get my newsletter by going to spuntoday.com/subscribe. Drop in your email address, and you will get the very next one. Alrighty, UFC 246, the return of Conor McGregor after a 15-month hiatus from the octagon. I'll be honest with you folks, I did not watch the entire card for this event, but from what I hear, I did not miss much. I saw the main event, obviously, and one other fight, which was Roxanne Modafferi versus Maycee Barber in the women's flyweight division. And besides that, I'm looking at the card right now. Seems like it was all straight decisions, with the exception of a lightweight bout between Drew Dober and Nasrat Haqparast, which was a first-round TKO in favor of Drew Dober. But yeah, the fight that I actually did see was Modafferi versus Maycee Barber. And I believe, based on the commentary, that Modafferi was the underdog in that fight. Maycee Barber was an undefeated up-and-comer who was 8-0, and whose goal after entering the UFC was to be the youngest champion in history to beat out John Jones' current record of being the youngest champ in UFC history. That unfortunately was not the case. She went up against Roxanne Modafferi, whose record is 24-16. She's a vet in the game. This is the first time that I've actually seen her fight. I forget what her fight name is, but it was something like the librarian or the nerd or school teacher or something like that, like something like geeky, because she kind of has like this, she wears glasses when she's walking towards the octagon. I don't know if that's a gimmick or not. She's very like smiley and like nerdy looking, but she fucked up Maycee Barber. Now, Maycee was absolutely compromised in the second round. I want to say towards like the middle end of the second round. Roxanne caught her with a punch that actually I don't even remember if she caught her or not. I think she threw a punch. She may have caught her like with a jab, or it was like a thrown punch that Maycee then avoided. But in her stepping back away from it, you see that she buckles, like her left knee buckles, and she like falls to the ground and grabs her knee and continues on fighting. But you can tell that the knee is compromised. And to Maycee's credit, she is a scrappy, vicious warrior. Like, she kept fighting. She just got up didn't put weight on that knee when she could avoid not to, and like was throwing like Superman punches to like jump off her other knee. She went back to her corner between rounds. Some miracle worker doctor apparently came into the octagon and like grabbed her knee, like to check her knee, which is the first time that's happened, I think, in UFC history, to like evaluate the knee. And you hear the doctor saying, like, one of the mics picked it up, oh, she has a partial MCL tear, but she's good to fight. And I remember Rogan and Felder, I think, was the other commentator, was saying, and Anik, of course, but they were saying, what, does this doctor have a fucking MRI machine on his fingers, on the tips of his fingers, to like make that very specific determination? She has a partial MCL tear. And while she was going back to her bench, even before that, after the second round, the corner guys that come wipe your face and wipe the blood out of your face, like while you're walking towards your stool, Macy tells him, don't push me, because he was like, she's walking towards him, he's walking towards her, and he wasn't like pushing her, but just the pressure of wiping her face is like pressure in the opposite direction that she's walking, and that was obviously, even that was like fucking with her knee, and she was leaking blood from like the side of her head. So Roxanne was definitely putting it on her. Then came to the third round. She finished fighting. Roxanne won the decision. Definite hats off to her. Then after the fact came out the news that Macy had a full MCL tear and a torn ACL. Not MCL, ACL. My bad, I've been saying MCL the whole time. A torn ACL, and she's going to take 9 months to recover. So wishing her a speedy recovery. And some good vibes headed her way. Now, I'll be honest with you. The rest of the card, that was the final fight on the prelim card. On the main card, there were 5 other fights, including the main event. The only one of those 5 that I kind of sort of wanted to see was Anthony Pettis' fight, but I honestly wasn't looking forward to the rest. I honestly don't know any of the other fighters, besides like Raquel Pennington and Holly Holm, but I wasn't really excited for that fight either. And from, again, what I've heard, it was a pretty much a snooze fest. Dana was even pissed about that fight in the post-fight press conference, was saying that he was about to walk out during that fight, and he was tight about the refereeing, the inconsistency in refereeing, where they would stop a fight prematurely in a previous bout, but in this fight, they let Holly and Pennington grapple up against the cage without like breaking them up for like 4 minutes straight or some shit like that. But yeah, Holly's fights don't really excite me. And she's a great martial artist, very respectful on the mic in every single interview that I've ever seen of hers. I like her, how she seems like as a person, and her dedication to the game. And I love that like kickboxing and boxing like background. She was a world champion boxer before starting MMA, but I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like her matchups, depending on the matchups that she has, and there's been a few like back-to-back, kind of like neutralize her. But anyway, I digress. The main event of the evening, Conor McGregor versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Everybody and their mother was excited about this comeback, and we were very curious as to what was going to go down. What type of Conor were we going to get? Because you have, the last time we saw him in the octagon, he held his own with Khabib for 2.5 rounds maybe. Then Khabib was just dominating thereafter and ended it in the 4th. And then we had like the whole melee after the fight, with Khabib jumping into the crowd, and leading up to the fight, all the bad blood, and Conor throwing the dolly into the bus, having legal troubles for that, and also for doing dumb shit. Like he was caught at a bar, and he like smacked like this old guy that was talking shit, or like punched him in the back of the head. Then there were reports about him having issues with like the Irish mob that was looking for him, and he seemed like unhinged. He seemed like he was partying too hard, drinking too much, probably like doing blow. Like he had that type of like nervous energy about him. And, the brash shit talking that blew him up in the first place, that we either love or love to hate. He had that, but it was like another element to it. It was like a spiraling out of control type of element, type of vibe, leading up to the Khabib fight and thereafter. Then things came out about him not really taking that fight seriously and not training as hard, and obviously all the partying and shit like that, which, take with a grain of salt, right? If you lose, especially in the fashion that he did, you're going to say you had a bad training camp. It's a little more believable since he was like so in the public eye that we knew at least all the like partying and not taking shit seriously. That was all there to be seen, but not taking the fight seriously and not training as hard. Only he and Coach Kavanaugh and their team know that. And in this fight, once he started doing the press run, it was a complete 180. We saw a very focused, very serious, still the Conor arrogance or cockiness, that air that he has, that like superstar type of quality, but without the shit talking and very respectful towards Cowboy Cerrone. As spectators, we are in between like, this is different. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Does this mean he's like martial artist focused and on top of his game and doing this thing? Or is that like wild, in your face, brash Conor from before? Like that whole persona necessary for him to do what he does in the octagon and be as great and reach the heights that he did prior to the Khabib loss. And then the fact on the flip side that he's coming back facing somebody like Cowboy. Most wins in UFC history. One of the most active fighters in UFC history. In the last year and a half, Conor fought once. Cowboy fought 11 times. Most fighters, a super active fighter, probably fight 3 or 4 times. Super active. Cowboy fought 11 times. Has the most head kick knockouts in the game. Has the most finishes in UFC history. So definitely no walk in the park. Now, the smart money says in this fight that if it finishes early, it's going to be Conor finishing it early. If the fight goes long, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, it benefits Cowboy because he's a slow starter and does better as the rounds go on. And on the flip side, Conor is known, or thought at least, to gas out as the fights go on. At least that's what we've seen with the Diaz fight. Diaz won. Even in Diaz 2, before he catch his second wind, you can see that, 3rd, 4th, those middle rounds kind of losing steam. We saw it with the Khabib fight, Mayweather, but that's like a different animal. And what happens? Conor comes out, throws his signature straight left right away, out the gate, first punch thrown. Cowboy ducks it on some fast twitch fiber matrix shit, goes to take Conor down. Conor sprawls, stops the takedown, and they clinch. Then Conor starts kneeling down and ferociously standing up while slamming his left shoulder. Remember, they're clinching, right? Kind of like hugging. Slams his shoulder into Cowboy's face. Boom. Once. Does it again. Boom. Into Cowboy's nose. Breaks his nose. Does it again. Boom. Into Cowboy's eye. Splits his eye. Does it again a 4th time. Boom. While they're still clinched. Cowboy's losing it. With fucking shoulder blows. First time I've ever seen that. Then he catches Cowboy with a head kick. Cowboy stumbles off balance. Then Conor starts raining punches. TKOs Cowboy in 40 seconds of the first round. And the notorious Conor McGregor is officially back. My favorite part is that the respect for Cowboy, and it was mutual respect on both sides, still carried even after that, after the bout. Right there in the octagon, Conor comes back to him, kneels in front of him, gives him a hug. Cowboy's like disoriented. Conor's like telling him that it was shoulder strikes, it wasn't elbow strikes, because Cowboy thought it was elbow strikes for some reason. Super respectful. After the post-fight press conferences where Conor was saying that anybody can get it, Cowboy's grandmother, which raised Cowboy, is in the octagon, and she comes over and she hugs Conor, and Conor's like talking with her, having a moment, and they ask Conor like what he told her and stuff like that. In the post-fight press conference, he was just saying that she's an icon of the sport herself. Like, she's always at Cowboy's fights. She raised Cowboy, and he's like a good man, a family man, and a veteran of the sport. And just wanted to tell her what a good job she's done, or something like that. And that was pretty dope. That was similar to Tyron Woodley's mom, not grandma in this case, mom hugging Usman after their fight when Usman won the title, and telling him to keep his head up and keep his head on a swivel and be on point because now they're going to be coming for him. And it's dope to see shit like that. Now, money-wise, Conor said, supposedly in an interview with Ariel Helwani, said that he's probably going to make $80 million off this fight, which is not the case. The math just does not add up. When I heard that, though, I was like, what the fuck? But as you guys know, or if you don't know, UFC discloses the guaranteed amount, but these main eventers, these headliners, they make pay-per-view points. And that's where they make the bulk of their money. So, for example, guaranteed, Conor was making $3 million up front, and Cowboy was making $200,000 and another $200,000 if he would have won. With pay-per-view points, they estimate on, I think it was like Below the Belt with Brendan Schaub, that with the pay-per-view points, Cowboy would probably yield like 3 or 4 million, which is dope. And if I had to guess, I would put Conor maybe in the low double digits millions. But what this win does and sets up for Conor, as he has said from before this bout here, that he wants to make this year the Conor McGregor season. He wants to fight at least 4 times this year, which is super active. And being that this fight was in January, finished in 40 seconds, so far so good. Seems to be lining up. And of the contenders, you have Khabib, obviously a rematch with Khabib, or Tony Ferguson, which people kind of like sleep on. Like they want to see that Conor Khabib rematch, but forget that Tony Ferguson and Khabib are fighting in April. A fight that has been 5 times in the making. The first 4 times the fight didn't happen. One time Tony Ferguson like slipped on stage while doing press and wound up tearing his ACL. He was out for several months. Another time Khabib, like his kidneys shut down or some shit trying to cut weight. Another time he was like, he missed weight by too much, couldn't cut weight because he was eating fucking tiramisu or some shit like that. Tony Ferguson was like making fun of him about. And it's been a highly anticipated fight. Most folks say Khabib's biggest competition is Tony Ferguson. So the whole Conor-Khabib thing might not even happen if Tony Ferguson starches Khabib, which is a very strong possibility. But anyway, you got Khabib on the table, Tony Ferguson on the table, depending on how that goes. Kamaru Usman, the 170 champ. George Masvidal, the bad motherfucker belt champ. You have Justin Gaethje in that realm. In interviews, there's been mention of another Mayweather fight. There's been mention of a Pacquiao fight, which if he is going to try the whole boxing thing again, I would rather it be against Floyd than Pacquiao. Because Pacquiao's just, I feel like, too fast and too aggressive, like his style, versus Floyd's, which is more of a laid back. Plus, I would like to see how that looks again, like giving him a second shot at it. But yeah, man, I'm excited. Conor's fights garner a lot of attention for the sport. And the hype is usually hilarious and very entertaining leading up to the fights. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Hats off to Conor. Hats off to Cowboy. And that was UFC 246. Next up is the Aaron Hernandez documentary, which is currently streaming on Netflix. The exact title is Killer Inside: The Mind of Aaron Hernandez. For those of you that don't know, Aaron Hernandez was an NFL football player, a tight end, to be exact, for one of the best football teams in NFL history. A dynasty, if you will, in the New England Patriots. Tom Brady's New England Patriots. Aaron Hernandez was also, for those of you that don't know, tried and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his brother-in-law, his wife's sister's husband or fiance, because I'm not sure if they actually got to get married. For those of you that don't know, Aaron Hernandez was also the recipient of a 5-year deal with the aforementioned NFL Dynasty team for $40 million. But wait, there's more. Aaron Hernandez also was alleged to be, but not convicted for, but I would go out on a limb and say that motherfucker did it, alleged to be the gunman in a double homicide in the middle of an intersection provoked by, allegedly, someone in the club that he had just come out of spilling a drink on him. He was also married, had a baby, had some gay lovers, was molested when he was younger, had an alcoholic, abusive father. Sprinkle all that on top of a guy that hung around the wrong crowd and also seemed to come off as not being the sharpest tool in the shed, and you wind up with a sociopathic ticking time bomb. And that's what this documentary, I thought, lays out for you very well. So Aaron was a very gifted athlete, seemingly all his life. His father was an athlete. I believe his father played high school football. His older brother was an athlete, played high school and college football. His brother was the quarterback for UConn, I want to say, or Connecticut State or UConn. I'm not sure what the difference is, or if there's a difference. And Aaron was a gifted athlete. He played on his high school basketball team, on the football team, played track, or ran track rather. He had a strict father that used to, by the accounts in the documentary, drink a lot and just like fist fight Aaron's mother in front of them, in front of the kids. Just like punch her and like take her head and slam it on fucking tables and shit. Like super violent and really strict with the kids. He would practice football with them. If Aaron would drop a ball one time, he would make him do like 100 push-ups, which, not for nothing, that's probably why he made some insane catches while he was in the NFL, if you check out his highlight reel. But balance, Dad. Balance. And when Aaron was thought to be going, following in his brother's footsteps, he got like a scholarship to Connecticut when he was like a freshman in high school or in junior high or so, like some crazy shit like that. Like they were like, yo, we'll give you, whenever you finish high school, come here, you have a full scholarship. That's how like talented he was. And his brother was there already, but he wound up going to Florida to play for the Florida Gators in an unexpected twist of events that nobody saw coming. Everybody was surprised by, and he wound up playing with Tim Tebow in college. And supposedly he would get away with murder down there, pun unintended. Being talented himself and chilling with Tebow, who was already getting national attention. Like whenever there was supposedly an issue with Aaron, the team would hush it up and they would keep shit under wraps. Back home, he had his dad, keeping him in line in probably like an OD way, but, keeping him in line nonetheless. His father actually wound up dying, if I'm not mistaken, before he went to Florida. So he didn't really have that like strong figure to keep him in check. And like I said before, I don't want to say he was a dumb guy, but just from like they play conversations of his on the phone when he is like talking to his mom or friends from the prison or to his wife, and he didn't come off as like a bright dude. He came off as like the quintessential dumb jock that thought he was gangster, that thought he was hard, he thought he was hood. He wanted to be that dude. Started getting tattoos all over the place, hung around with shady characters, and they say that talent-wise, he should have been a first-round draft pick, but he dropped to the 4th round because of all this negative mystique around him. And the Pats draft him. They're known as a no-nonsense organization, so you'd think that the structure of that team would be good for him. It would fill the void, perhaps, that his father's passing left behind. But that's not the case. He was in New England. He's from Connecticut. So going back home around those shady characters, around his quote-unquote friends, was just a hop, skip, and jump away. He would take an 1.5 to 2 hour drive and continue doing all the fuck shit that he was doing on the weekends. And the first incident, which actually in the documentary doesn't come up until after the known incident that he went to jail for, happens supposedly, allegedly, as a result of him being in a club, somebody spilling a drink on him being pissed, the dude he was with, his boy, quote unquote, taking him outside because he's pissed off. And then Aaron winds up seeing the guys later on in a car driving by. So they get in this gray SUV and his boy's driving. Aaron tells him to like pull up next to the guys. He pulls out a gun, gets their attention, shoots him and kills them, and leaves them right there at a red light. And from the scene, the case had gone cold because nobody was around, nobody saw, and all they could pick up from cameras is a gray SUV. That gray SUV disappears, nobody sees it again until a little bit later, and I'll get back to it. Then Aaron's hanging out with these 2 other dudes, shady characters that are like low-level criminals. I think they said one of them like used to steal bikes. They had like minor drug charges, like shit like that. They go to pick up Aaron's brother-in-law, and they're in a rental car. And while the brother-in-law is hanging out with them, he's in the car with them, I think him and Aaron had like some sort of disagreement or something like that a few days before. I forget exactly what it was, but it seemed like he knew the vibe was off, like something was wrong. So he texts his sister and tells her something to the effect of, "You know who I'm with, NFL." I guess that was like a code name for Aaron. And he's like, "Just in case, so you know." They take him to a remote location. Aaron shoots him several times, kills him. They drive back to Aaron's house. All this is caught like on, different cameras, the surveillance camera at Aaron's house, cameras of them like driving on the highway, the text messages on the phone and shit like that. The surveillance after that at Aaron's house, it's like tampered with. They try to fuck up like the surveillance system. I think they erased or deleted like everything after that, but it showed everything up until that point. The two dudes he was with return the rental car, and the attendant at the rental car agency finds a gun shell in the car. That's how they tied like that car in, and they knew the car to like look for and follow, or track rather. Aaron Hernandez's cousin buys a ticket to Canada or some shit like that for one of the guys, and then drives the other guy to Georgia. And then that cousin of Aaron Hernandez's, after they get a warrant for Aaron's arrest and they arrest him and he's on trial and shit, and they check her house, just for, driving these guys and shit and trying to help them get away. She, which is a woman fighting breast cancer, mind you, like doing chemo, the whole nine. She has a silver SUV that matches the description of the one from the double homicide in her garage that had not been used in over a year. Coincidentally, right around the same time of that double homicide. And it's in Aaron's name. Sick shit. You can't make this shit up. And because he had a great attorney, because there were no eyewitnesses, they couldn't get a conviction without a reasonable doubt for the double homicide. However, he was convicted to life in prison for his brother-in-law, the guy that, by the way, introduced him to his wife and baby mother, which, by the way, stuck by Aaron in a quintessential loyal to a fault scenario. Like, her husband just killed her sister's husband or her sister's boyfriend, and she's still stuck with the husband. So that like broke that family apart, obviously. Then Aaron, after being found not guilty for that double homicide, which he was being tried for after already being in jail, was the first time that you kind of see, well, definitely the first time you see him cry or anything like that. Like the first time he was sentenced, he was just like stone cold. Looked like he had like shark eyes, like a fucking sociopath. Like nothing happened. And they actually said something about him that was very telling, in my opinion, which was that he transitioned from his 7,100 square foot mansion to an 8x6 cell seamlessly. And you even hear him on the phone talking to his mom in one conversation, and he's like, "Oh, sometimes I walk over to the door and I look back in my cell and I see how neat it is and how nice it looks." It was just like, what, dude? Like, what the fuck? He was not right, man. His brother said after the fact that he knew of Aaron getting molested when he was younger. His mom wound up, after his father died, getting with and marrying his cousin's husband. It was just like dysfunction all around. And he like really resented his mom for that. Then there were all these like allegations of him being in the closet and, being a bisexual, and that the, gangster bravado and persona was a way to kind of like shield that or like cover that, like the gangsterness was his beard. And there was this one dude from his high school quarterback that supposedly that they interviewed a lot that seemed, but something was off with him. Like he seemed like very eager to be on camera. You know what I mean? Like he was like enjoying his 15 minutes of fame, like a little too much. So something was off there. And I heard on the podcast that supposedly it was true, like the rumors of Aaron being bisexual. Some guy that he was supposedly really with came out and said that high school quarterback guy was full of shit. Like he was never with Aaron, but who knows? I don't know. But that seemed to definitely be like an element within all this. Maybe he was afraid somebody was going to out him. I remember that being a narrative when the whole thing happened of why he eventually hung himself. Because that's what he did after he was found not guilty. He showed emotion for the first time, looked back at his daughter and his wife, cried. A day or two later, hung himself in his cell. And they were saying that, the reason why he cried and showed that emotion is because he knew he was going to kill himself. Now, the one quote-unquote smart thing he did, or calculated thing, maybe would be a better choice of words, is that In the letter, he left letters, like for his daughter, for his wife, his lawyer, I believe. And he tells his wife in the letter that, not to be sad or whatever, and that she's rich. Now, when he went to jail, that $40 million for 5 years, I guess, was forfeited. But he heard from another inmate or looked up that if he died, that his sentence gets commuted or some shit like that, or retracted or something, and that he would be due that money, supposedly, which would obviously go to his wife and kid. The sentence was commuted after he committed suicide, and they really didn't get into, in the documentary, if the wife wound up getting the money from the Patriots or not. What they said in the documentary is that the Patriots would probably rather spend like double the amount in legal fees to not have to pay that money or some shit like that. But yeah, man, it's a sad story all around. I could imagine that little girl growing up, his daughter coming from that. It's sad. And just the wasted talent on Aaron's side. But yeah, it was definitely a very well put together documentary, and I recommend you guys check it out. It's called Killer Inside, The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, and is streaming on Netflix. And last but not leastly, folks, Dave Chappelle, one of my favorite comics, definitely one of the best to ever do it, is the proud recipient of the 2019 Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. And for those of you that don't know what this is an American award presented by the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts annually since 1998. And it's named after the 19th century humorist Mark Twain, and is presented to individuals who have had an impact on American society in similar ways to Twain. So it's definitely high praise. Past recipients are folks like Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, Ellen, Steve Martin, Whoopi Goldberg, Lorne Michaels, Billy Crystal, David Letterman, and on and on and on. That's a lot of heavy hitters right there, folks. And I actually mentioned this during the last episode 143, when I said that I would probably record half the episode, then pause it, then go watch that, then go back to recording, which is actually what I wound up doing. And I knew it was on because I saw a post by Neil Brennan on Instagram of his speech during the event, and, promoting the show, saying that it was going to be on PBS that same evening. And I wasn't completely sure what the Mark Twain Prize was. I think I saw like clips of Eddie Murphy's when he won it. But I really like Neil Brennan, which is a comic himself. I reviewed 3 Mics, his special on Netflix, here on the podcast as one of like my favorite single things that I watched for that given year. I think it came out in 2018 probably. It was like my favorite thing that I saw in the whole year. Out of all the movies, TV shows, comedy specials, Neil Brennan's 3 Mics was the shit. So you guys should definitely check that out. And he's also the co-creator of The Chappelle Show, which is obviously an iconic show that only had 3 seasons before Dave Chappelle's artistic integrity was tested, and he was like, you know what, fuck you, and bounced and disappeared to Africa, and people thought he was nuts because he gave up $50 million, and he wound up coming back, and Netflix gave him like $60 million to do a couple of comedy specials. Anyway, so I saw that post, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta watch this. And it's a dope event. It's like star-studded. It's a lot of comics, so you get a lot of funny. It's a lot of good comics too. Like you had Sarah Silverman, Tiffany Haddish, Jon Stewart, Aziz Ansari, Michael Che, and you have other folks like Bradley Cooper, Erykah Badu, Common, John Legend, Mos Def, Morgan Freeman, Sarah Silverman. Did I say Sarah Silverman already? And everybody gives like speeches and pay like high praise to Dave Chappelle, who's there, sitting with his family. And it's really dope. It's touching. They tell like personal stories. A dope line from Sarah Silverman was like, she said something that the crowd like oohed at. And she said something to the effect of, don't feel weird just because you haven't checked Twitter yet to find out how you feel about this. Which I thought was a dope line. And Dave's mom was there, and they also show like backstage, like green room shit with all of them hanging out, and them at a local club in DC, which is where the John F. Kennedy Center is for Performing Arts. And it shows clips of Dave Chappelle and other comics, doing jokes and sets It's a really dope event. And you guys should check it out if you haven't. It aired on PBS. I've seen a bunch of clips on YouTube. I'll link to some actually in the episode notes so you guys can check it out, which you can do so by just checking out the episode notes wherever you're listening to this right now, whether it's on Spotify or Stitcher or the Apple podcast app, YouTube, wherever you listen. Just check the episode notes. Or go to spuntoday.com/podcast/144 and you'll see all the links and episode notes there. And I want to wrap it up with this. Dave tells this cool story about an exchange between him and his mother, where growing up he was a very introverted, quiet child, and he was talking about incidents either in school with getting picked on or maybe when he was just starting comedy, where he kind of felt out of place in the clubs and all these older people around and kind of felt like pushed around. It was one of those two scenarios, or maybe both, because he did start comedy fairly young in his teens. I think he lied about his age and like first went on stage when he was like 16, 17, 18 or something like that. But anyway, I'll leave you guys with this. His mother tells him a line which resonated with me and was, sometimes you have to be the lion in order to be the lamb that you really are. Let that marinate for a bit, folks. Congratulations to Dave Chappelle on receiving the Mark Twain Prize. And congratulations to you fine folks for finishing episode 144 of the Spun Today Podcast. Stick around, listen to some tunes, then to a bunch of ways that you can help support the show, if you so choose. Peace.
Perfecta, donde tú está el sol y la lluvia refresca. Desde el alba hasta la puesta es un ambiente ideal para sudar todo mal. Y nací en tierra agradecida, donde crece casi todo lo que le tiras. Y puedo decir que en la isla hasta el que no tiene nada se puede alimentar aquí en tierra de sabe se la inventa, somos gente simple con herramientas, no es de dudar nuestra capacidad.
Hey folks, Tony here, and I hope you're enjoying the show as much as I enjoy putting it together for you. If you'd like to support, I'd really appreciate it, and we'll give you a one-stop shop of sorts on how to do so. If you can make your way over to spuntoday.com/support, you'll find a bunch of different ways where you can do just that. There you'll find an Amazon banner similar to the other banners found throughout my website that you can click on and will take you to Amazon where you can do your shopping like you normally do. This will not cost you anything extra, and Amazon will pay me a percentage just for driving traffic to their website. It's a great way to help support the show financially without actually having to come out of pocket. At spuntoday.com/support, you'll also find links to my Patreon and Ko-fi pages. Patreon and Ko-fi are two similar websites where you can set up reoccurring donations for the show. If you want to donate $1 per month, $1 per episode, $100 per episode, whatever you like. You can check out either one of those two services there. There's actually also a Patreon video that's kind of like a little tutorial explanation video of how Patreon actually works. Also at spuntoday.com/support, you'll find a direct donation button where you can donate by way of PayPal. You'll find a link to Apple Music, which works similar to the Amazon banner. You can click on it, it'll take you to Apple's website where you can do your purchasing like you normally do, and again, it does not cost you anything extra, but I will get paid a percentage just for driving traffic to their website. And you'll also find links to the Spun Today viral style store. This is where you can get Spun Today related merch, and you'll find things like these cool premium t-shirts that have writing related sayings on them that I put together myself. I'm definitely not a clothing designer by any stretch of the imagination, but I put together things that I wanted to see and wear myself. A couple of my favorites are the one that says writing is life, and another one that says write need every day, and it has like a puff of smoke looking design right behind those words. You'll also find a Spun Today coffee mug and a really cool color changing mug that's related to my debut novel, Fractal. It's completely black, and when it gets hot, when you put it in coffee or tea, it starts changing to white, and it also exposes the cover art for my novel, Fractal. It's pretty dope. So definitely check all that stuff out, which again, you can find by going to spuntoday.com/support. And of course, do not forget to follow me on all of your social media, at Spun Today on Twitter, at Spun Today on Instagram. Subscribe to the Spun Today YouTube channel, where you can find clips and excerpts from the podcast, along with other cool content. Like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Spun Today. Also, don't forget to check out all the free shit that I have on my website as well. Go to spuntoday.com/free writing. And there you're going to find dozens and dozens and dozens of free writing pieces that you can check out for motivation and inspiration and just some general food for thought. You can check out some of my photography at spuntoday.com/photography. Feel free to take any of those pictures and use them as you wish. I set it up so that you can like copy and download the photos. And my short stories are available at spuntoday.com/short stories. And last but certainly not least, my Pride and Joy Corner, spuntoday.com/books. Here you will find my published books, which you fine folks can find links to purchase them on Amazon, whether you want hard copies or digital Kindle copies. That's the spot for you. Thank you very much for being a Spun Today listener, and as always, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening.